Hey howdy, hey folks, it is Mrs. Johnson with the Agro Wisdom Channel. We are back again. I've been uploading every other week-ish instead of every week, which was my hope, but you know what, life is busy and chaotic, and it's springtime here where I live in the current moment when I'm recording this, so life is busy, and I'm gonna blame it on that. But I have found some things in the last 2 weeks-ish that I want to yap about, and talk about, and teach you some things. So we're going to talk about it. And the first video that I want to record today is actually about what to do when a large animal dies, like a cow or a horse. And I found this on the internet. Just existing on the internet because it came up, because I'm an ag girly, it came up on my feed, and then this was a thing that people experience, and sometimes neighbors get involved, and, things, and then someone in the comments was like, oh, hey, the Forest Service has a whole official document on how to get rid of dead carcasses that are large with explosives. And so I looked into it, and we're going to read about it today. That's what we're doing. Dun dun dun. And that is what this is. See, the United States Department of Agriculture, the Forest Service, from 1995. Wrote this thing about how to successfully get rid of large carcasses. And there's two ways that they go into detail. I won't read this whole thing. You can Google it if you want to read the whole thing. This way, essentially, this is a diagram saying, hey, place dynamite, explosives, in the listed areas to partially explode the body. I think there was the following example illustrates partial obliteration for a horse that weighs 1,100 pounds. Urgency is not a factor. Perhaps a few days is expected before the public is to visit the area. And then there's another diagram if you need to break it down further, which is essentially just dumping a bunch of dynamite on literally everything. And I'm not super well versed in using explosives. I will save that for another day. Hopefully in the lab where I can actually, teach students how to do that safely. And maybe, hopefully, I won't be blowing up carcasses because that sounds crazy. But this whole thing, just existing, kind of insinuates that there would be a reason why the Forest Service would have a protocol like this. And this first paragraph kind of goes into that. And I will read it to you. There are times when it is important to remove or obliterate an animal carcass from locations such as recreation areas where a carcass might attract bears, at a popular picnic area, or where the public might object, or along the side of roads or trails. Large animal carcasses can be particularly difficult to remove, especially if they are located below a steep cut slope or in remote areas. So I was like, okay. I did some investigating, and I was like, okay, but why was this such a prominent thing that the Forest Service said, yeah, we should do that? Turns out, this specifically was a really big thing in Wyoming. In Wyoming, correct me if I'm wrong, It has the lowest population in, like, for a U.S. state. And that means there's lots of rural, like, backcountry areas. And lots of times they use things like mules and stuff to, do research and stuff. And unfortunately, in the backcountry, sometimes crazy drastic things happen, and like horses break legs because they slip and fall or something. And then, they die. And then you're like, oh man, I'm camping here for the next 3 days, and I don't have heavy equipment. Dang, but I do have dynamite. And so that's kind of how it apparently came about. I don't know, don't quote me on that, but that's from the snooping I did online. So I pulled up 2 articles, fairly recent articles from like 2024 about what the update is. And the first one from Vice. Ads. No. Ads scare me as a teacher. Anyway, from Vice, which is a news source. I wouldn't necessarily say credible, but, a popular news source. Says that forest rangers can't blow up horses because of climate change from October of 2024. And that's just kind of a wild thing to read. That, like, you can't blow up horses because climate change. And so I was like, oh, interesting, what's happening? Apparently, the climate change, essentially. You can Google this and read it as well. Essentially, they can't explode horses anymore. They can't blow up large carcasses because of fire risk, because they're in a drought. I was like, oh, that's weird. Okay. That's wild. Okay, whatever. Oh. I'm touching buttons on my camera. That's the button I want. There we go. Okay. And I was like, okay, wild. That's a concept. And the last one is actually from Cowboy State Daily. I didn't do any real research stuff on it. Like background checks on, what they typically post. But they are Wyoming-centric news, and they post like every day. And so I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. And that, they would know more things than I do. And so, yeah. And it had some nice photos and some interesting things. Oh. Yeah, it kind of goes into like what the next best option is, which is essentially just pushing carcasses down steep slopes and then not going there anymore, which is a wild concept. And grizzly bears are enough of a thing to, like, blow up horses, I guess. Wild. And I didn't read this beforehand, but it does somewhere in here say, a note of caution to remove horseshoes to minimize dangerous flying debris. And I would love to know the story behind that, on why that got put in there. Like, is this someone, blew up a horse and then got horseshoes thrown at them? because that would be a wild story to have. Vulgar, violent, but you get my gist. Like, or, like, is it one of those things where, like, someone shook the vending machine and it fell on them, and that's why you can't tilt the vending machines anymore? Or is this just a little nerd in the corner being like, maybe you should do that before it hits you in the head? I'm curious. But yeah. So, I learned some things, and I hope you learned some things too. And Cowboy State Daily seems like a sort of interesting thing. So, maybe check them out. And also, let me know if you find any other weird things that go along these lines, because I would love to cover it. Alrighty, thank you, bye!